All right, so unfortunately, part of living under this dystopian hellscape of an economic system that we call capitalism, there are realities that we have to come to grips with, like the fact that the U.S. corporations here domestically are exploiting labor, with Amazon workers having to literally piss and shit in bags in order to meet the quotas necessary to take home their starvation pay. But internationally, this takes a more violent and extreme form than even here domestically, with U.S. multinational corporations using, sweatshops to literal slaves, and that's what we're going to talk about here, child slavery, some of the most horrific practices you could possibly think of in order to maximize their own bottom line and their profits. And I have a story here from Common Dreams that is basically describing this latest court ruling that came down from the Supreme Court on behalf of Nestle and this Cargill company. And basically, they are giving them a free pass on using child slavery in order to extract some of the resources that they use in their profits. So, dangerous precedent. U.S. High Court sides with corporate giants Nestle and Cargill in child slavery case. A lawyer for 6 men who alleged they were victims of human trafficking said the corporations, quote, should be held accountable for abetting a system of child slavery. So here's what Common Dreams has to say. Human rights advocates Thursday denounced a Supreme Court decision in favor of U.S. corporate giants Nestle USA and Cargill, which were sued more than a decade ago by 6 men who say the two companies were complicit in child trafficking and profited when the men were enslaved on cocoa farms as children. The Supreme Court ruled 8-1 against the plaintiffs, saying that they had not proven the company's activities in the U.S. were sufficiently tied to the alleged child trafficking. The companies had argued that they could not be sued in the U.S. for activities that took place in West Africa. So, not denying that they are using child slavery, just saying, well, it's over there, so don't think about it. Neil Katyal, former acting Solicitor General under the Obama administration, represented the two companies and also argued that they could not be sued for complicity in child trafficking because they are corporations, not individuals. Okay. So lawyers, here's what they had to say. The lawyers who were actually bringing the case on behalf of the plaintiffs. So lawyers for the plaintiffs argued that Nestle and Cargill have total control over the production of cocoa in the Ivory Coast, where child labor is widespread and where the men said they were forced to work long hours and to sleep in locked shacks at night. And they continue describing this ruling and what it means. Earthrights International, which filed an amicus brief with the court on behalf of the plaintiffs, called the ruling, quote, a giant step backward for U.S. leadership on international law and protecting human rights, as if we really had ever any leadership on those issues. We have been the biggest violators of human rights in probably the history of humanity. But he continues, quote, the ruling implies that U.S. corporations whose executives decide from the comfortable American bedrooms to profit from murder, torture, and slavery abroad cannot be sued in U.S. federal courts for violating international law, said Marco Simmons, general counsel for the organization. Quote, this ruling has disturbing implications for the future victims of human rights abuses seeking justice against businesses in U.S. courts. This ruling also sets a dangerous precedent giving corporations immunity from profiting from human rights abuses. So, listen, corporations profiting from human rights abuses, this is the U.S. capitalist system. I mean, this really should not be surprising to anybody. This is how capitalism works on a global scale when you have wealthy Western imperialist countries that go around plundering resources and literally enslaving populations to serve their bottom line, their profits that they are bringing home. So this really shouldn't be anything surprising. The more surprising aspect of this is how much these corporations have complete control over our judicial processes, over our executive branch, over our legislative branch. These corporations completely own and control the United States government. Okay, we're not a democracy, we're an oligarchy, and we are ruled by these select few who are willing to go to these extreme lengths in order to maximize their profits and maximize the benefit of their bottom line. So this is where we're at in the United States. The Supreme Court of the United States ruling 8-1 on behalf of these corporations in a child trafficking slavery case. So, I mean, listen, this gives you a picture of what the priorities are of the United States government, right? This goes, again, across the board. Our entire government has been bought and controlled by these corporations. And so are there ever going to be consequences for things like this? Probably not. And this doesn't just take place with corporations like this directly. This takes place at the international level just with our foreign policy agenda. I mean, I've been covering the stories recently of Antony Blinken and Biden's State Department saying that they oppose any international criminal court investigation into war crimes committed by Israel against the Palestinian people or the United States in Afghanistan. And so the reason we oppose these things is not because we are innocent of these crimes, and the reason why Nestle and Cargill are being let off easy is not because they are not guilty of the crimes. They didn't even really deny that they did what they did. It's more just that our system is so corrupted and fucked that we understand that we are guilty of these things, and we are choosing not to take any serious concrete action in order to bring about consequences because, again, this is the system. This is what capitalism is designed to do. And so that's the main thing that I want to get across in this video. This is the capitalist system. These are the consequences of it. Literally doing child slavery in order to maximize your profits, while U.S. government officials, judges, politicians, etc., protect you all along the way.